Hey guys, Naz here with another tutorial. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a bit sick at the moment, so my voice might sound a little bit croaky, but I'll do my best. Today we're going to go over how I do thread sculpting for eyes. And thread sculpting is when you take a long piece of thread on a doll needle and you essentially make little stitches at adjacent points across the plush and pull tight, and if you have enough of that thread it will retain that pull that you've put into the plush. It's extremely useful. I mainly use it for improving eyes, but there are other uses. You can use it to tighten any sort of areas on your plush depending on how large they are. So to show you an example of what can be done with this technique, here is Marceline, an alicorn plush that I'm working on at the moment. And you can see to the left, this is what her head looked like without any thread sculpting, just after it had been stuffed. And I don't know about you, but I think that her eyes are way too wide in this picture. I want them much closer together, like on her reference. So with thread sculpting, I was able to turn this into this. So you can see here, the eyes are much closer together, but we still have a very nice look from the side. Essentially, we are pinching the inner outline here and here, pulling them together to create this nice front look. And I use this on a lot of plushes that they might have quite wide heads, but you want their eyes to be nice and close together at the front. So I'm going to take you through some video footage and I'm going to show you how to do just that. So today I have an example of a Marceline head test that is not thread sculpted, and I'm going to show you just how much we can improve this head by pinching the fronts of those eyes together. They're a little bit wide at the moment, they're not too bad, but we can definitely improve it and make something like this, which is the final Marceline head that I ended up with. So you can see nice tight eyes on the right and quite wider eyes on the left. So how do we fix that? With thread sculpting. What you're going to need to get is a doll needle. This is just a small one, but it's enough for what I'm doing here. They're a nice long needle, so it's D-O-L-L. For a while, when I was very first starting plush making, I thought it was doll needle, and I was searching D-A-H-L everywhere, and I couldn't find them, but it is doll needle, like a doll. So anyway, you can get these at pretty much any sewing store, and you want to double up your thread, a nice strong sewing thread, and I'm just applying some wax because you're using a very long piece of thread, probably about 2 or 3 times my arm's length I'm using here, and you definitely don't want that to tangle up because it is a very long piece and it can ruin your entire job if you get a nice painful tangle somewhere halfway through. So I like to poke the doll needle up into the plush from where it's been stuffed. I don't close the hole in the bottom until I've finished doing this. And you can see I'm just poking it up right next to the side of the embroidery that we want to pinch. I'm using a red thread here just so you guys can see better, but you want to use a thread that's going to match your plush. In this case I'd use brown, but if I didn't have brown thread I would use black because the embroidery we are stitching right next to is black and you don't want these stitches to be visible. All we're doing is poking that doll needle through the plush to the exact same point on the other side of our embroidery, making sure to come up right next to that embroidery. You don't want to actually be piercing the stitches because this can ruin the embroidery, but you want it to be as close as possible. So you can see I'm just repeating the process, probably only stitching, going up a couple of millimeters each time. You don't want to make too big a stitches, otherwise your thread will be visible. So you just want to be taking tiny little stitches right next to your embroidery on both sides. And you want to do this all the way up your eyes. Depending on how much of it you want to be pulled in, you might only want the center of your eyes to be pulled in, but in this case I want the whole front section on both sides to be pulled. This plush makes it nice and easy for me because it has all these lines in the embroidery that I can use to sort of match up side by side. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does help keep things nice and neat and you're not missing any particular areas. So I'm just going to continue doing this all the way up the plush, and then we're going to have a go at pulling our eyes nice and tight close together. With your stuffing, I personally stuff medium firm. You don't want to stuff too tight because otherwise your thread sculpting won't have any pull won't have any sort of space available to pull. It's going to be too hard. So you don't want it to be too soft and you don't want it to be too hard, but it is easier the softer your plush is. So a medium firmness is fine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get a nice tight hold on our thread, and we're going to use our hands to pinch the eyes as we pull that thread just to help it along. And you can see already we've got a really nice pull, which has really improved our front eyes view. Now you might be able to tell that the bottom of the eyes haven't been pulled as much as the top of the eyes. I like to wait till I've gone all the way up to the top to do my first pull, just to make sure that there are a lot of points holding the plush on each side. You can do it earlier if you want, but I prefer to wait till the end. But this does mean that I need to go down to the bottom, put in some more stitches and pull the lower parts of the eye closer together so that they match the top. Again, doing those tiny little stitches, and also doing this will reinforce your thread sculpting. So I would like to probably make sure that I go up the eye and all the way down, so you're covering that length twice, just to make sure that it's extra strong and you're not going to have any problem if any of your thread breaks. Theoretically, if a piece of your thread did break, you'd want your eyes to still hold together because there are that many stitches holding that tension in place. So we're nearly back down to the bottom of the eye now, and we're just going to repeat the process we did before, get a nice strong grip on our thread and gently pinch the bottom as we're pulling. And you can see that this has fixed the bottom of the eye, so it's nice and neat all the way down. Now you just want to poke your thread and pull it out somewhere that you're not going to see on the final plush. I'm pulling it out down where the neck is going to cover, and I'm just going to secure this by making a number of small knots just to make sure that that thread isn't going anywhere. After this I can proceed to ladder stitch up that hole in the bottom of the plush if I wanted to, and that's pretty much the whole process. Ideally, if you've used a matching thread colour to your plush, you really aren't going to see any of those stitches that you've put there because they're not going to be wide enough for you to see. You might be able to see them on this plush because I've done a pretty quick job and I've used a contrasting colour thread, but generally they're usually pretty well hidden if you keep them pretty close to the embroidery. My camera doesn't really want to pick them up, but you can kind of see some little divots there. Now, one problem that can arise, especially when you're doing very wide heads, is you can get sort of little wrinkles in the front of the nose. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like inside after you've done your thread sculpting. You can see that those tiny little stitches have gathered up a bunch of stuffing underneath them, sort of on the ridge of the nose. And what can happen if you don't have enough stuffing underneath those stitches is it can start to pucker and wrinkle, and you can get sort of a wrinkled nose look. Now with the final Mark Celine plush, I was quite lucky because she has a snarly face and she naturally does have these wrinkles in her reference. So you can see them here, just a couple of little divots as if she's snarling. But if you don't want that, you can see on this plush there's a tiny little one in the middle. I really wouldn't worry about it too much, but you can get your doll needle and you can just pull some stuffing gently up into that cavity between those stitches, and that's going to theoretically get rid of most of your little snarly lines and you're going to have a nice neat head. But that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!